An eulogy to slain time. Black. Are there any other colors? I see them rarely now. I see black. Dotted by the hues of pyres, surreal glows, portals of life. This madness, this horrific madness, these savage scars have seared our being, and we have changed forever. Beyond the pain, the agonizing sense of helplessness, ransoming in our minds, we must ask, did the past mean anything? Does it give us the passport to live today and tomorrow? Or was it all for nothing? We must ask, if only to renew our lease with this planet. Architects, we are a strange breed, indulgent, egotistic, sure of self, brash even, perhaps greatly delusional too. Sometimes we cloak ourselves with armors of quicksilver, often a pretense, sometimes a refuge. What do we really stand for? Who are our gods? Are we garbed with shining metal, swords in our hands, wanting to win a war fought with bullets? Or do we imagine, perhaps even convince ourselves, that the swords we carry are cosmic weapons and that they can duel any fate? If we had to swear an oath before we were let loose, what would it have been? To do good to the planet and its beings? Perhaps. But it's an oath many could have sworn. What would be ours? Only ours. To create spaces that heal people and nature, that talk to the past, the present, and the future, that have tales like many clues embedded in them for some to find, others to seek, and yet others to make their own. To distill life as we understand it and infuse it in the bones of the spaces we imagine. Perhaps that would have been our oath. Would we use words like bringing dignity, sheltering people, providing succor? Perhaps we could. But that could not be our oath, not ours alone, because it's one many could have sworn. Then, from time to time, we must ask if we have lived this imagined oath, and when threatened with the end, as we are today, it is a time that one must ask with brutal honesty, do we have the passport to live? Have we earned that right? What shall we make then about a grand man now yonder, who stood in the summer cauldron, surrounded by rocks breathing fire, and imagined a forest? And then for years toiled and tapped streams and seeded the soil and nurtured it with love, till the rocks were cloaked with skins of green and the water filled to the brim, and the birds made it their home. What shall we make of this place, decades after its being, with many owners changing hands, and each new owner swearing to uphold the purpose of the land and let it sing its own poem? Will we think that a seed was planted that it will regenerate when the tides turn, when the seasons ebb. What will we make about a forest and a lake that was imagined on a land to make place for a house at the cusp of the fields and wilderness, built of waste, of stones thrown away, of courts of domesticity that pay tribute to the birth of basil from the churning of fire, of water that is wild, strewn with pink, of wild grasses that talk to the breeze. Will we imagine that perhaps it was always so, that it was never a barren land, and gently a home was nestled in its arms? Will we imagine the world the way it was meant to be, and not the way we willed it to be? What will we make of a being that revolted against the mayhem that is our city and grew gills to breathe but never see? That like us, its skin aged and weathered, and as it grew older, it became pensive, perhaps even stoic. And in its bosom celebrated life, with bricks fired with hand, walls that danced and swayed, and pirouetted and twirled. And even as they danced as if free, the strings that held life stayed, tenuous, taut, but in place. Will we tell ourselves that it's okay to be different, to be human, but different, to shield ourselves from the world we ill understand, to turn our face from the wretchedness that surrounds us, and yet celebrate life for the precious gift it is? Or what will we make of a feudal fort where fountains pay tribute to the women of such harsh lands, internalize pain, and hold in their womb the elixir of life? Or courts where a rough-hewn throne sits at the edge of the black orb and gazes from the rim of the universe? Or water like a flower lazily licks the dark stone and hurries along in deep meditation and vanishes, only to keep appearing? Ludicrous soldiers that gaze at the valley, waiting for an attack they imagine imminent when none will come. Or will it? of memories of gardens centuries old, of their birth before they became celestial, when a central well fed the soil that sprouted food. Will we tell ourselves that sometimes it's all right to tell stories that few can understand, or even few care to, but it's okay to seed intrigue, to plant curiosity, so that the mind wanders and imagines of a world that we cannot dream of. Or what will we make of exhilarating madness, when the sky at times is dotted by the moons, and at others with clouds and stars that twinkle, sometimes with a cloud-strewn night, and at others shine bright, of a place where the walls are like folded cloth. The gates have eyes, and prayer wheels whirl in a tumultuous swirl of all the mad emotions that make us. Hate, joy, pride, pity, anger, and every other emotion known to man. Will we allow ourselves that we are but alive and human and full of life? And we want to dance and sing our heart's content and hold close those we love and scream till the nights echo with our whoops. And what will we make of a house on a hill, threaded with steel, a place, a perch, to watch the drama of nature, to see its wild grasses that tread the land, etched with a line of red, reminding us of the whimsy of man. Its fine preening gardens, like giant buttons of green, gather and rush, urging you to thread the house. Of plants in patterns that echo the fine colors of stone and the rippled concrete, where in seemingly eternal time, a floating man in orbs of glass sways slowly, held in place, and yearns each day to be free. Two giant beings in brick stand in conversation and preside over the space, conversing with the stones and the landscape beyond. Reeds of steel with heads of clay, peer with inquisitive visages, fireflies in the night. And in the morning light, change garbs and hope to camouflage, shimmer on silver water, and waltz with the grasses that surround. Where ribbons of metal, suspended precariously, hang and twine. Leaves and the forbidden fruit fused, a double helix. Life clings, sometimes only just. Will you admit that it is those that inhabit who make the space, enrich it, fill it with life? Our means are meager. All we can hope for is to give life a stage. That happiness is lonely in the act of creation, but overjoyed, seeing creatures of many hearts and quirks nestling and calling it home. And what will you make if I told you about a garden of the mind, a mental labyrinth, dizzyingly unreal, where only the sky and the river can steady a whirling mind, even darting, yet calm and alert? And further, if it inspired a new age place of work, where many pathways led and led astray, and between them are held worlds, each a tale of land and man, and the innumerable ways to converse, of water that is tranquil, wild grasses and a rare tree, on steel-rimmed islands where birds can be free, courts planted with seasonals, food for the table, another minuet into the walls of nature. Thin soils on slabs of parking, planted with ideas of wilderness, bring close nature, its chaotic glory and seeming mess. Of courts with lost trees, each one presided by those we may lose one day, a place to sit and converse with them, knowing that they have much to say. Will you say that the past needs a conversation, one in which we drown in a heady mix, that it has lessons that none can teach us now? Will you allow that we need to find ways of living our part, make kin with land, of being one, and with a caring heart? And then, what have I told you about a wall inscribed with the watermark of the city of stately trees, etched in concrete, cast as the visage or perhaps a mask, of colliding boxes, dicing the sky, mottled light as the sun crashes through, seemingly quiet, taunt with energy, waiting to uncoil and implode without a din, as if a death of a distant star, precariously held, straining from their fastenings, as if to leap in an orbital loop, a space of silence and ethereal beauty. Of an underground cavern, sculpted, a forest of trees, lit, phosphorus fires, silhouettes in the dark. A faraway place of magical myth where the mind can soar, weightless and lit. A stony wall that inscribes the story of the tree and how we have maligned it over time, urging us to reconsider broadcasting the crime. of lightly floating traverses of cloth, a river and its tail, bearing marks, scars, and wounds of how we men fail. Like a possessed swirl, lunging, darting, snaking, haunting corridors, reminding us the perils of the world that's sadly in the making. Would you allow me to suggest that every moment is precious? There is nothing ordinary about life, nothing banal. With both hands must we clasp it and talk with it, often with empathy, but mostly shake it, celebrate it, ring the resounding cheer, so that many can partake and yet many others can hear. And then, what will you say of a house disdainful of most, that discourages people with boulders that only the initiated can traverse, that revels in discontinuities, in sudden changes where the Spartan rocks hide a sensuous chord, that is moist, gentle, and gurgles with cisterns of mist, and layered with feathery green, of places hidden, a pond, a secret, with trees as sentinels, a place to lose self, to hide from those who ask, or behind tall walls of stone, amidst water that crashes, seats close to each other, so that words of mutiny are drowned and dissipate. Corridors laden with eerie musicians and trunks of nails, men around the corner, and many such unsettling tales of rugged stone and rustling steel, and yet a place that shocks to heal. Of garnal trees, their ancestry tattooed on their body, and serene gardens like soft cloth engulf and take the edge of the seemingly bristling, restless one. Will you agree that even those with crusty ways hide rib cages with a warm heart, that choose reluctantly to befriend, beguile, make someone else fused with self, an inseparable part? Do we judge too quickly? Are we all driven away, perplexed, even repulsed, and lose the chance to find one who has so much to say? Or even that we seek sameness, or logically continuities, or the compelling will of reason, when life is anything but that? And what will you make of a palace serene and imperious, that carefully, cautiously treads amongst the trees, that holds amidst it a quart of tranquil water, Soft hues render edges, and then an island of green. Silent structures in the brick, watchful and content, leaving behind noise, anxiety, avarice, and all that is ill spent. Of a scented labyrinth, to walk at a slow pace and unlayer the hubris that plagues the human race. Or the memory of the fields that are still tilled, and now of a cosmic song, its notes with silence filled. Of canyons of green that rush and dissect, and paint man and nature with a single brush. Will you allow that there is time for silence, for reflecting without noise, for finding that place, empty and yet dazzlingly rich, with life's joys? Will you agree that the meaning of balance is not a limited, mediocre, singular one, but one needing its essence to find resonance in every act, in just about every one? On a road pulsating with humanity's full cast, a park, a narrow sliver in a city that slowly sheds its past. The mills dismantled now, the chimneys long dead. A human tragedy still lingers, not laid to bed. A graveyard, and on its bones, the city triumphantly marches through, taller, higher, faster, intoxicated on a heady brew. Over turbulent seas and passages that it made, the port has moved, stripping memories, even the faint markings now begin to fade. Of its birth, from many islands fused, filling oceans, vast tracts of land, where many ecologies were historically abused. Of its conquered past, or streets in the city, lined with flowers on sale. Much like these stories that sadly don't last. Can we say that it's about the stories that we fail? Every now, every one, every place, every incident is a tale, read from a scroll that slowly becomes dust, one we must glue, renew, and retell. For sanity, for mankind, for us, this is a must. And finally, how can we not smile at a young couple seeking to be wed, at a time when the world was being slain and left to dead? On a barren land, with time they had none, equipped with smiles that rippled in the laden air, hearts warmer than the summer sun. They egged, even begged, that a paradise be planted and grown double time, and flower on cue, and make their union blessed and divine. We hurried, we scurried. It was a frenetic race. Grasses were seeded, tall and short. Flowers of many hues slowly found their place. And as if ordained by the gods, on the chosen day, a garden so delightful, a gift of nature on grand display. riots of red, seas of yellows, blades of green together, a medley of hope. Will you then agree that even when it's the darkest, even when there is no hope to give, there always is a waif-like tug that says, we will live. And eulogy to slain time then, a moment to ask, do we have the license to live? What is our purpose? What is the task? A rush to answer may not be preferred. Instead, when alone, a voice deep inside, if you strain hard enough, is perhaps heard. Fearful am I of those whose righteous bugles blare loud, who gaze at this orb as if from a celestial cloud. As we plod and pause and then resume, as we stop and ponder, then lumber along, we sometimes feel poetry, making connections, telling tales of yore, being kind and true, and search meanings of life is perhaps one way that we will slowly heal. I shudder at those who talk about an apocalyptic world. It's terrible. It's horrific now, and that's true. But there's much left to seek and much to do. Dismiss then these evil notions in the mind. There's a world out there, and that fact is not changing too.